Rape and sexual abuse of men is often not reported, and that makes it difficult to get a true picture of how widespread it is. But it is believed to be a major problem. In Nigeria, one organization working with men says statistics tend to reflect one side of the story. I'll be talking to an expert on that after this report from DW correspondent Flourish Ubanyi on the digital safe space that's helping men in Nigeria find healing from their childhood trauma.
This 29-year-old man, let's call him Daniel, was sexually abused at the age of 6 by an older female. She was a neighbor. That experience, he says, completely changed his life. He now struggles with a pornography and masturbation addiction and sees no way out.
I have looked for all sorts of solutions to get out of it, and I'm still not out. And my last hope now is getting married. That's the only thing that can get me out of it, the addiction. If such experience can lead to that kind of thing, I'm very sure it has led to a lot of things in some people's life too. So why won't we come out and talk? It will keep happening. So we have to do something.
He's doing what he can, writing about his experience anonymously, hoping his story will inspire parents to be more protective of their sons. And as a school teacher, he says he feels an even greater burden to prevent young ones from having a similar experience. It's hard to find any official figures on the rate of sexual abuse among young boys in Nigeria. One recent report put the number at 3 in 10 boys, a high number that hardly gets any attention.
A lot of people still don't believe that men can be sexually assaulted because men are stronger, men like sex. There's a lot of stereotypes that we have in society that tend to support those kind of notions.
Solomon Idowu and his friend started Boys Without Borders to change such notions. It's a safe space online where men share their experiences. Since they started in 2020, they've heard from more than 40 men. Many of the victims want the world to know that boys need attention too. But Idowu says it's only a first step to healing.
I think a majority of our respondents will tell you they do not want mental health support. And I think this also ties back to that notion like, well, I can handle it myself, I'm a man. Even though like they see the need to actually talk about it, to like unload, some of them still do not understand the importance of talking to a professional about those challenges. And I think that's also one of the things that we are trying to work on now.
Idowu and his team of volunteers are now reaching out to young boys in secondary schools, teaching them that it's okay to ask for help.
Our motto is raising functional men. That's pretty much it. We see it as a cycle. Boys become men, and men teach boys to become men. So what we are trying to do is to reach out to boys at their early stages, give them the right information.
Meanwhile, survivors like Daniel, who send their stories to Idowu, just want people to pay more attention to the issue so that it doesn't happen in the first place.
We have to keep talking. I'm not the only one that have this kind of experience. I am very sure guys won't want to talk about stuff like this, but the more we ignore it, the more it happens.
Sexual assault against children happens globally. Much attention is paid to women and girls. Daniel and Idowu hope these kind of stories force the world not to forget about the boys.
I'd like to welcome Dr. Princess Olufemi-Kayode. She's an expert in responding to sexual and gender-based violence, as well as sexuality doctor. Dr. Olufemi-Kayode, welcome to DW News Africa. You founded Media Concern Initiative for Women and Children more than 20 years ago. Do we know how widespread sexual violence against men and boys is?
Yes, about 20 years ago, let me just say about 2005, when we began to respond to the issue in the country in terms of child sexual abuse and creating this awareness that we have a problem and we're not really looking into it. We had children coming generally into the center and calls coming in from parents. And when I use the word children, I'm talking about both male and female. So you have boys and you have girls. So we began to have boys being reported being sexually molested. That was just like trickles, in terms of the reporting. If you want to look into percentage or into percentage of numbers of reports that came, generally children covered about 85% of the sexual molested cases we had from 2005 down to about 2015. But boys, if you now want to look at between male and female, you want to say about 25% of that were boys. But interestingly enough, now in the country as a whole, you have a lot of more reports coming out, particularly in the north, that have to do with sexual molestation of boys. Really, really, really coming in it's not trickles anymore, it's coming in a higher dimension here.
And Dr. Nigeria introduced a trailblazing law in 2015. This is the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act. That changed the law essentially to include rape of men as a crime. Has that law been a game changer for survivors of sexual violence getting justice?
Indeed, it has. It has really, really, really helped the response, to sexual and gender-based violence, both for men and for women. Because now even for women, it's no longer just penile, penetration, but it means anything that is used is also rape. So for them, we're having more reports coming out. And then nearly, I think close to 34 states have enacted their own VAP laws. Because as an act at the federal level, states also have to incorporate and enact theirs. Yes, close to 34 have already enacted theirs. And then, of course, with that came some very wonderful interventions. Now you have a state response and implementation for the law, a committee that is responsible for the implementation of the law, for everything that needs to be in place for people to access help, to access support, rehabilitation, health. Then there are also sexual referral assault centers and rape crisis centers in the country. Now we have close to, I think about 28, if not more now, SACs across the country. In some states more than one, in some states just one. And then training of primary health care. All of this is coming under the VAP Act. Immediately, the VAP Act was enacted. The states also began to enact their own laws. And with that, we are seeing better responses for all gender, in fairness, for everybody to access, particularly for men who were the ones who were not really stepping out before.
Right. Dr. Olufemi-Kayode, I know that you are a survivor of sexual violence. What would your message be to someone who has experienced or is still experiencing abuse and is still suffering, maybe alone? What can they do?
Get help. Help is available. Get help. Back in the days when it happened to me, there was really no help. But I sought help for myself because I knew there was much more to life than I was going through. And that's just a self-determination for me. And not everybody also has that. Knowing fully well that the way it impacts every individual is different from the other person. But get help. There is help now. People need to reach out. And when I say get help, you may not even know where to get help. But when you keep speaking out about it and you keep searching, thank God for Google. Even Google. To just Google, where are response centers? Where can I go? And that also, to just add a bit to that, it also means it's not everybody who wants to go through the criminal justice system, particularly for adults, but you can get the help you need. You can get the help for, trauma-informed counseling. You can get medical assistance because if you're raped and within 72 hours, you need to access what we call post-exposure prophylaxis. So if you don't even know, a lot of things are happening to you. There are a lot of screening that will be done for you medically, and majority of this, 90% is free. So we need to know that there is help out there for you. And if you report and you don't really want to prosecute anybody, you don't really want to go forward with anything, it is your personal, as an adult, your personal decision, which will be respected. To say, okay, fine, what I need is the medical assistance and of course the counseling and maybe therapy I can get to be better so that I can let this weight be lifted off, this hurting and pain. And, a lot of things go through for a survivor. And there is help, really, there is help.
Thank you very much for that, Dr. Princess Olufemi-Kayode. We appreciate that.
Thank you.